scalpel or anything to like cut all this stuff up. But you want to peel everything back to the midline, and you want to be able to see a distinct muscle right here and a distinct muscle right here. Okay? So then what you're going to do is you're going to take your scalpel and find that seam where this muscle begins its outline here. So you're going to cut from the midline down that seam, and you're going to go out to a vein right here. So, okay, so check this out. Fun fact about anatomy. So remember how I told you guys that the femoral nerve is going to be the nerve that innervates all of our quadriceps muscles in the region of the femur. So if I asked you guys what you thought this blue thing right here is, it's a vein. What do you think the name of that vein is?
Femoral.
Femoral vein, right? And then the artery that supplies this region that runs right next to it, what do you think the artery is going to be called?
Femoral artery.
Femoral artery. You guys already know veins and arteries. Boom. All right. So, okay. So you're going to follow the femoral vein down, and then you'll notice where it kind of comes around out here. I'm just going to continue to follow that seam here. So this muscle that we are excavating here is called the gracilis muscle. So we'll get to a point where you can like stick your finger kind of underneath it. And don't worry about like any of the little fibrous spiderwebby things underneath. That's not of a concern for us. So then we're gonna cut this guy and free him up here. All right, so now we've just reflected one of our first adductor muscles here called the gracilis. All right. So then deep to the gracilis is where we're going to have, oh, crud. Okay, so another thing to be conscientious of is that the adductor longus in the cats is very, very fragile. And so you're going to want to use your blunt probe to get in there and see, and I've already kind of messed it up a little bit, but not too bad. But it's a very, very tiny, fragile muscle in the groin region, but it's going to be this guy right here. Okay, so that's the adductor longus, right? And then this guy right here is going to be the adductor femoris right here. Now it looks like, okay, so now a lot of you guys are going to like see that there's a little seam that separates these two things right here. They're the same muscle, all right? So it's very similar to the longissimus of the epaxial muscle, so you don't want to separate those out. This is just the adductor femoris, all right? So let's review. What's this flap one right here?
Gracilis.
It's our gracilis, and this big one right here?
Adductor femoris.
Adductor femoris, and then the really tiny fragile one up here,
Adductor longus.
that's going to be our adductor longus right there, okay? Now I know it doesn't look long, but it's after, like it's just called the adductor longus, all right? So that's going to be this little tiny dinky guy right here, all right? So we've pretty much gotten all of our adductor muscles out. In the cat, I don't think I'm missing anything. Yeah. Okay. And then so on the human, I'll show you guys the magnus and the brevis. All right. So, oh, sorry, I'm sitting on my phone. So here, this is actually going to be part of our hamstring group. This is going to be your semimembranosus here. Okay, so this is not part of the adductors, but it's part of the hamstrings. Okay, so keep in mind that you can see different muscles from a variety of different views. All right, so it doesn't necessarily have to be like looking at the backside of the animal. I can pin it from this angle too, and you have to know, okay, that's not going to be an adductor, but it's actually belonging to the hamstring group. Okay, so all right, so we've gotten our adductors dissected out. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to work on our quadriceps group. So these guys take a little bit more time, but you'll also notice that like the gracilis had that seam running along the midline, this long quadriceps muscle right here is going to have a similar thing going on right here. And this muscle is actually called the sartorius. Has anybody danced before or done like classical ballet training or know anybody who does that? Yeah? Okay, so dancers, particularly ballet dancers, are going to have very, very robust sartorius muscles because of all of like the straight leg like manipulation that they have to do. So that's going to be one of the most important muscles for that. So you can take your scalpel if you're very careful and take it and then suture it just along, not suture, but cut along the femoral vein right here. You should be able to get to the point where you can stick your thumb in and excavate it all the way up to the knee right here. All right. And do that. At the same time, actually I should have done this first. I should have just cleaned off the whole leg first. That's a good idea to do, is to just clean off the whole leg first, because it'll help with the rest of your dissection as you're going through. So let me do that real quick out here. Gap right here, okay, that you can like stick your finger through. All right. So once you do that, you're going to take your scissors and you're going to cut down the midline of this muscle right here. So again, do you guys remember? So which muscle is this one?
Sartorius.
Sartorius, right? So you're going to cut the sartorius directly in half, just like that. And now sometimes what will happen, like it did with me, is you'll get a little piece of another muscle that gets connected onto the underside right here. Just make sure that you separate that and then you pull this all the way back up to where it originates on the hip up there. And so then you can, and so you're doing, and I'm doing this to preserve the origin and insertion of this muscle, okay? So the origin, and I'll show you guys a neat trick to be able to figure out where all the origins are. So the origin of the sartorius is going to be on the anterior crest of the ilium. You don't have to remember that right now. I'll reiterate it later. But you can just see it because of where it's coming from up here. So anytime we refer to an origin of a muscle, we're always going to be thinking about where it is closest to the body that it attaches. Okay? And so the closest part of the body for all of this stuff is going to be the hips. So the os coxa, right? Which is really important why you know all of the parts of that bone. And then the insertion is going to be on the distal end of the body, or away. So in this case, it's actually going to be on part of the tibia down here. All right. Okay. So we're reflecting this back. So it's going to attach onto the distal end of the femur and to the tibia too. So we're going to reflect this back, get that nice and exposed. All right. So now the first muscle that I'm going to get, just because it's the easiest, well, it's not the easiest, it'll help make the rest of this easier, is going to be our tensor fascia lata muscle, which, like the epaxial muscles, is going to be tightly bound in this really tough connective tissue called your iliotibial tract, or your IT band, right? So the actual muscle itself is going to be this little arrowhead-shaped one right up here next to the hip that's embedded within this connective tissue. So I think I'm just going to do it this way. So I'm going to preserve that. So, all right. So you can see it looks kind of like this little arrowhead shape right here. And so it's it's inside this really, really tough connective tissue, your IT band right here. Right? So when you're doing that, make sure you don't destroy or tear up that muscle at all. Clean up a lot of that connective tissue there. All right. So we've got that exposed. And I managed to tear off a little bit of it. Our sartorius muscle, right? So we've got this guy right here. We reflected him back, and then we expose this one. Remember, what's this one called? This muscle?
Iliotibial.
Tensor fascia lata, and then the connective tissue is called what? Your iliotibial tract or IT band. Okay, so two separate things there. Now, for the rest of the quadriceps group, what you're going to do, so you already, by doing it this way, you've already exposed two of them. And you've exposed two of your vastus muscles. You have your vastus medialis on the medial side, right here. So that's going to be this guy. Do a better job of cleaning them up later. All right, so that's going to be this nice muscle right here. So vastus medialis, because it's on the medial side of the leg, right? And then we have another fairly large one out here. Kind of cheat the leg. Called, what do you guys think this one's called? Vastus lateralis, right? So fun fact, in all muscle physiology studies that are done on humans, the vastus lateralis muscle is the one that's most commonly used just because it's the easiest to get at and it's indicative of a lot of really cool biomechanical data and stuff. So, but that's the one that we tend to use most of the time when we're doing biopsies and stuff like that. Okay, so we've got our, which one right here? What's this one called?
Vastus medialis.
Vastus medialis. This one?
Vastus lateralis.
Vastus lateralis, right? So now check this out. Okay, so we've got one that's right in between here. What do you guys think this one's called?
Intermediate.
Wrong. No, I'm just
Rectus.
kidding. This is, yeah, but no. So that's not the vastus. It's not the vastus intermedius. This is going to be the rectus femoris, right? And so the way that you can tell, so remember our rectus abdominis. So why does it have the name rectus in it?
Straight up and down.
Straight up and down, right? It's a very straight muscle. Our rectus femoris follows the same thing. It's a straight rod-like muscle here. Okay. So to get at the vastus intermedius, what we're going to do is you're going to again take this muscle and cut it directly in half. So get your scissors right under there, and you cut it just like that. And then when you separate that out, you peel that back, your vastus intermedius is going to be directly deep to that. Let's see if I can get a better view. I know. This right here is going to be the vastus intermedius right here. All right. So it's going to be this muscle just here. That's the vastus intermedius right there. Okay? So rectus femoris, cut that in half, vastus intermedius, just there. All right, so let's review real quick. So what's the most superficial quadriceps muscle here? Sartorius. We reflect that back. Then what's this muscle on our medial side?
Vastus medialis.
Vastus medialis. One on the lateral side?
Vastus lateralis.
Vastus lateralis. What's our arrowhead one? Tensor fascia lata, and then the connective tissue? IT band. What's the straight rod-like muscle running up and down the leg? Rectus femoris, and then deep to that, vastus intermedius. Okay, so those are all of the quadriceps muscles. All right, so now let's to get at the hamstrings, these are, it's going to be kind of gross, but so if you lift up the leg and you're looking at the caudal portion of the leg, you'll see there's a bunch of fat and stuff going on right here. If you stick your finger in and dig in near the knee, you can peel out all of this fatty connective tissue. And you gotta do that because it's a bunch of fat and lymph, and we don't care about that. So, view of the caudal portion of the leg here, and so what you'll notice, what you might be able to, there's going to be a big nerve that's going to be running just underneath this big muscle right here. And I'm going to see if I can get it isolated here, because we want to preserve that if we can. So, okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to cut this muscle in half. Now this muscle is going to be the biceps femoris right here. So this muscle is going to be responsible. It's going to be the biggest hamstring muscle in the cat. Okay. In humans, ours are kind of like dorky, and we actually have, because it's a biceps, it has two heads. So I'll show you guys that in the human. In the cat, I'm not going to bother showing it to you because it's like you really have to get in and separate this muscle out to find the two heads. So we're not going to worry about that right now. But so what I did, so what you're going to do is after you've exposed, like so this region of the leg, you're going to take a blunt probe and you're going to get up as close to the muscle as you can and really, really separate out all this connective tissue that's in here. And then you can poke it out the other side here. And we're doing that because there's a, like, so that IT band kind of goes into the biceps femoris. And so what we're going to do is we're going to try and separate that IT band out so we can get a nice hole for our scissors to go through. So once you do that, take your scissors, and again, this is going to be another one that we're going to cut directly in half. And so we're cutting this in half because this is a reminder that you have two halves. So this is the biceps femoris. Okay. So once you do that, you can peel them back just like this, and lo and behold, there is this really cool white, tough connective thing going on right here. What do you guys think this is? It's actually not connective tissue.
Is it the sciatic nerve?
This is the sciatic nerve right here, okay? I will for sure pin this on the cat and in the human, okay? So you have to know this nerve, all right? This is my favorite nerve because this is the one that I do all my research on, all right? So we've cut our biceps femoris in half. We've got our two heads there. So you've reflected that back. Now, for the other hamstrings, remember we talked about I mentioned earlier that you have this big muscle on this side of the leg called your semimembranosus, right? It's big and it's got like a lot of muscle to it. On this side of the leg, we have this muscle here called our semitendinosus. All right? All right. It doesn't look as pretty because there's a bunch of connective tissue going on here, but this, and this is my bad, this should actually all be one thing right here, so don't do what I just did there. But this whole muscle right here is going to be our semitendinosus muscle.
So it looks like two halves right there is really all one?
Yep, don't do that.
Oh.
Don't do that. You want to keep those intact. I kind of separated the muscle out right there. So this is all one muscle right here. This is your semitendinosus.
Oh.
All right? But, okay, again, keep in mind that from this view, you can also see other muscles. So from here, we can also see this guy, which is our semimembranosus right here. And then we can also see this guy up here, which has been like really, really jacked up. Did he have cancer or something? He might have had cancer. So this muscle up here is going to be the adductor femoris muscle right up here. And so this guy that's like on the other side of the sciatic nerve right up here. So if we flip it around, it's going to be the same muscle right here. Okay, so keep that in mind as you're going through and you're doing your dissections. So the different views that you can see each of these muscles in. Because I may not be super nice and just pin only the adductors from this view. I can pin the hamstrings, I can pin the quadriceps, I can do a bunch of stuff. I can also pin from this view and ask you what a synergist of this muscle is, what's an antagonist of this muscle, what is a nerve that makes this muscle go, what is the nerve that makes the antagonist of this muscle go. Okay, so like what is the nerve of the antagonist of this muscle is like a third order question. Okay, so that's about as bad as it's going to get. But those, as you guys are going through, those are the kinds of questions you should be asking yourself. Okay, so we have all of that. So we've got all of our hamstrings out. Now, okay, for the lower limb, it's going to be kind of tough. I'm going to see if I can do this without tearing off the biceps femoris here. And okay, so for the leg, you don't have to worry about like the extensor hallucis longus, extensor digitorum longus. You don't have to worry about any of the digit stuff on the actual animals or the cadavers, but on the models, I'll expect you guys to know those. Okay, so again, if you guys are confused about which muscles you should know, these are just some of them. These are just the big ones from the main groups. You're still responsible for the lower limbs, so the gastrocnemius, the soleus, the plantaris, those ones, the tibialis anterior, but those are better seen on the models and on the cadaver. Okay, so let me see if I can.
The muscles you listed on the board are only for the cat.
And the human.
Cadaver.
And the cadaver. So, and I will go through them with everybody on the cadaver after we do the dissection today. All right. So if you peel back your biceps femoris head that you have here, don't cut it all the way off. I'm just reflecting it a little bit so that we can get at the musculature down here. So this is going to be the lateral head of your gastrocnemius, and then you have a medial head over here. So the gastrocnemius is another two-headed muscle. And if you take your blunt probe and you stick it right in where there's like a bunch of connective tissue, there's another seam that goes there, so you should be able to find it pretty easily. And then hopefully you do it better than I did and not jack up the soleus muscle that is directly underneath it. All right. So, let's see. Yeah, this cat had something. There's something weird going on with his muscles. They're discolored. It's not a tumor, it's just connective. It's like, it's necrotic tissue, so it's dead, but it looks weird, so. Yeah, it's okay. All right, so. So here we've got our gastrocnemius, our calf muscle, we have a lateral and medial head, and then on the lateral side you are going to have the soleus muscle that peeks out. And on the medial side, if I can do this, well, I'll get the, let me see if I can do this real quick. Muscle peeking out right there. So two different muscles, all right? On the lateral side, soleus, and then on the medial side, you have plantaris just here, okay? And then sort of facing the, it's like medial lateral side, you have the tibialis anterior muscle. And so if you're doing this on the same leg, which actually what I'm going to have you guys do is, so do all the upper leg stuff on one leg and do the lower leg stuff on the other, so that you, because to really get at a good view of the tibialis anterior, you have to cut the biceps femoris off, but it's going to be this muscle right here. So this whole guy, that's going to be your tibialis anterior, right? So those are the muscles. All right, so let's review them one more time real quick before you guys get started. All right. So starting out with our adductor here, our most superficial adductor, what's this one called?
Gracilis.
Gracilis. What's the function of this muscle?
To adduct.
To adduct the leg. Okay. What nerve makes it go?
The obturator nerve.
Obturator nerve. Okay. So deep to that. What's this muscle here? This is the adductor femoris. Okay. What nerve makes it go? Obturator nerve. What is the function of this muscle?
To adduct.
To adduct the leg. It's in the name. It's the adductor femoris, right? And then up here, what's this little tiny one called? Adductor longus. What is the nerve that makes it go? What is the function of this muscle? To adduct the leg. What is, what did I say? Oh, so what is the equivalent of the adductor longus muscle in the humans? It's going to be the adductor magnus and brevis. Okay. What's this muscle here?
Adductor femoris.
Nope. This is going to be the semimembranosus. What muscle group does it belong to? Hamstrings. What is the function of this muscle? To extend the hip and flex the knee. What nerve makes it go?
Sciatic nerve.
Sciatic nerve. Okay. Yeah, so for any of the hamstring muscles, we're just going to go with sciatic nerve. Okay. I will let Ken confuse you guys with the differentiation between what the sciatic nerve is. All right. So sciatic nerve. All right. What's this muscle up here? It's going to be our sartorius muscle. What muscle group does it belong to? What is its function? Flexion of the hip and extension of the knee. Okay. What nerve makes it go?
Femoral nerve.
Femoral nerve. So deep to that. What's going to be this medial quadriceps muscle here?
Vastus medialis.
Vastus medialis. What's this lateral one called? What's this straight rod one in between them?
Rectus femoris.
Rectus femoris. Deep to that. Vastus intermedius. What's our arrowhead-shaped muscle right here?
Tensor fascia.
Tensor fascia lata. What's the connective tissue?
Iliotibial.
IT band. Okay, or iliotibial tract. What is the function of all these muscles?
To extend the knee.
What muscle group are we talking about?
The quadriceps.
Quadriceps. What is their function?
Flexion of hip.
Flexion of the hip,
Extension
extension of the knee. Okay. All right. What muscle is this one out here?
Bicep femoris.
Biceps femoris. What's its function?
To
Extend the hip.
Extend the hip, flex the knee. Okay. What nerve makes it go? Sciatic nerve. What is this muscle right here?
semitendinosus.
Semitendinosus. What nerve makes it go?
The sciatic.
Sciatic nerve. What's its function?
Extend the hip.
Extend the hip, flex the knee. Okay. And then for the gluteal muscles on the cat, don't bother with those, but they're going to be up here next to the tail. And so there's this little seam right here. So I kind of actually cut into it when I did my cut for the epaxial stuff, but you have gluteus medius here, and then gluteus maximus up here. Okay, so, but I'll show you guys on the cadavers later. Okay, so those are the muscles for the dissection today. Any